All right, wonderful, you all. So we're going to get started. Folks will continue to come in, and they'll be able to jump straight into the conversation. And so, for time's sake, um, thank you all so much for coming this afternoon. I'm Derek Young, co-founder and executive director here at Leadership Brainery, and we have an incredible conversation for you all today. And it is a part of our GSAC series, which is our Graduate School Access Collaborative. Some of you may be familiar with our GSAC in the past, which was our Graduate School Access Coalition and our council. And so that's changed a bit as Leadership Brainery is focusing on our two pillars to share more of the information and focus on our ambassador program. And so we are hoping to bring more people into our community as we discuss a lot of the policy changes, a lot of the research around graduate school. And as you all know, it's been really challenging time for many of our partners that we have worked with in the K through 12 space, but also many of our academic partners. And so we wanted to create a space where we can share more information that hopefully helps us all as we navigate this K through 12 and higher ed spectrum, and primarily focusing on graduate school access. And so again, please continue to share your name, pronouns, location in the chat. And really quickly, as many of you all know, at Leadership Brainery, we do focus on increasing access to master's and doctoral degrees for communities who lack access. And we truly do feel with our whole heart that education is the pathway to create generational prosperity. And there's not enough focus on graduate school education out there. But we do see with the data when it comes to wealth generation, when it even comes to health outcomes and so many other things, that we do see different outcomes when we encourage our communities to achieve the highest levels of education, master's and doctoral degrees. And so, as I just mentioned, we have constructed our new model of GSAC so that you all can learn directly from experts shaping the graduate school landscape. We'll introduce our amazing speakers in a moment, understand how policy and systems are changing the outcomes for current students, both short term and long term. And of course, this is a space for us to exchange strategies and ideas and ask questions. And so, beyond the presentation, we will have time for dialogue and questions. Which goes into the agenda right here. It's going to be a quick meeting, 1 hour. Just for some housekeeping, we're recording now. We'll record the presentation, but we will stop the recording for the breakout rooms and also the discussion so that we can talk openly about some of the things that we'll be discussing today. And then two things that we do ask of you is to please complete the survey at the end. So we're going to drop the survey at the end in the chat. Please click on that and give us your feedback. It's going to be extremely helpful as we continue to navigate this new model. And then also register for next month. And so we'll be doing these conversations each month. And we're really excited about the speakers that we have lined up. So you can scan the QR code on the screen. And we'll also be dropping that link in the chat for you all to register for GSAC in March. All right, so I am going to hand it over to Josh Fairs, who is our policy and research specialist. Josh has been working extremely hard, putting together GSAC and all of these events. And so I want to first give him his recognition for all the work that he's been doing, bringing a lot of insights to the Leadership Brainery team and community around policy and research. And of course, bringing these two speakers into our orbit. So Josh, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm really excited to introduce our two speakers for our first GSAC session today. So we have here Artem Gulish and Nicole Smith from Georgetown Center of Education and Workforce. Artem Gulish is a senior federal policy advisor at the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. His areas of research include graduate education, the future of human endeavors, pathways to good jobs, youth policy, race, ethnicity, gender and economic equity in education and the workforce, education career pathways, career navigation, state education and workforce policies, and data systems, the role of higher education in a democratic system, and educational adequacy. And he's regularly contributed to CEW's research. He's been featured in media outlets such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, U.S. News and World Report, and various other media outlets. Nicole Smith is a research professor and chief economist at the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce, where she leads the center's econometric and methodological work. One of her primary functions at the center is developing a framework for restructuring long-term occupational and educational projections. This framework forms the underlying methodology for Help Wanted, Recovery, and the Future of Work, three reports in an ongoing series that projects education demand for occupations in the U.S. economy. She is also part of a team of economists working on a project to map, forecast, and monitor human capital development and career pathways. Her current research investigates the role of education and socioeconomic factors in intergenerational education mobility. I want to hand it over to our two speakers and give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome in. Welcome in. Awesome. Artem, Nicole, take it away.
Just waiting for the screen to share. So good afternoon, everyone, where I am. Thank you so much for allowing Artem and I to talk to you a little bit about some of the research that we do. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I just wanted to start off by telling you some things you already know about the value of a graduate degree. So first slide, please, Artem. So this is just our overview, and most of us know about the fact that graduate degrees are very valuable right now. Okay, so they earn more and have the most strong job prospects. Workers with graduate degrees earn 57 more than everyone else. Net tuition and fees for grad programs have grown steadily from 3K to 10K per year since 2000. And debt has also increased from 34K to 50K in 2020. We also know that your field matters, what types of field, and STEM grads earn more, but they carry less debt. And we know that persistent equity gaps remain. I know that's the E word now. We almost don't want to talk about it, but it's true. Equity gaps remain. Race, gender gaps remain, and African Americans and Hispanics carry very high loan balances, and that's been documented in various locations other than our center as well. If you were to look at American Association of University Women and various other locations, they talk a lot about the increasing number of debt that minorities and women carry having completed graduate degrees. Grad plus loans have increased access, but fueled a significant amount of debt. So what we know is that the graduate degree really is still one of the most important ways of getting access to middle class earnings. In addition to what you see on this screen, we know that if you have a graduate degree, you earn on average about $3.2 million in lifetime earnings. There's a 20% earnings premium above the bachelor's degree. And everyone with a graduate degree is much less likely to experience unemployment. So when we go to the second chart, this particular chart on the second slide is showing us the relation. Oh, sorry, one slide before, Artem. You went a little far ahead. So enrollment has tripled. So we know that a lot more people are completing graduate degrees and master's degrees, and this is a function of the demand for graduate degrees as our economy becomes much more sophisticated, and we are pursuing types of jobs that require a lot more skill, then the demand for graduate degrees is increasing. So if we go to the next slide, the next slide shows us the relationship between educational attainment and the demand for jobs by education. So if you look at 1983, Only about 8% of our jobs required any type of graduate degree. We move on to 2021, that's, much more significant. It's 14%. And in 2031, it's 16%. And we actually have new projections coming out that are going to look at the numbers for 2034, and I'll tell you it's also risen for graduate degrees. So graduate degrees not only pay well, they keep you employed. You earn significant amounts of money over the bachelor's degree, but there's a lot more debt. So moving on to the next slide, slide 5. We find that with the exception of doctoral degrees, the graduate degree to bachelor degree premium is similar to what it was 30 years ago. So even though we see more of these degrees, the premium over time, and that premium is that distance. If you look at the distance between the two sets of degrees, the premium remains very stable from 30 years ago. And depending on if you're a glass half full or a glass half empty type of person, you might say, well, this is a lot more effort over time for the premium to remain stable. But you could also say, well, there's a lot more people with graduate degrees. And even though we have so many more people entering into the labor force, the economy is able to gobble that up and, find ways of paying them well so that they remain in high demand and are able to maintain their earnings premium. So just before I transfer to Artem, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has also demonstrated in their projections that graduate degrees are increasing in demand, and they project that 40 professions require master's degrees right now. So we have significant amounts of professions that need master's degrees for you to even, be considered working significantly in that field. So I'm going to pass on to Artem.
Thank you, Nicole. So if the premium is high and there is high demand, those are all good things. The question is, okay, so what is the issue? Well, the issue is really comes down to cost and debt. So the net tuition and fees have more than tripled for a graduate program between 2000 and 2020, and the debt has also, cumulative graduate school debt for person has ballooned from 34,000 to 50,000. Nearly half of all federal student loans disbursement now go to graduate students. So this again demonstrates how much graduate education in particular has been increasing in its role in contributing to student loan debt, and this has been a major motivating factor behind some of the recent changes we'll talk about later. In terms of fields of study, a growing number of students have recognized that it's important to go into a field of study with high demand and with a payoff, especially given the higher cost of graduate degrees. So we see more and more students going to STEM and healthcare, while fewer students are going to education and public service. There is also substantial disparities in terms of how much people with graduate degrees, workers with graduate degrees earn, and this is in particular concerning given the differential debt that Nicole talked about earlier. So for Hispanic, Latina, Black, African American, American Indian, Alaska Native students, well, the equation in terms of ROI is a little different because they earn less with those degrees and they tend to take out more debt. So this makes it more challenging for them to get graduate degrees. Nicole?
So now we move on to a chart that talks about women, and this is very important for those in this room. I mean, for many women, it's a known fact that women have to earn an additional degree to make as much as a man with 1 degree less will earn on average. So it's just a fact of the way we have structured work in this country and the way in which we value work in this country, and that remains true. So this is saying that a woman with a graduate degree on average will earn what a man with a bachelor's degree will earn. So if a woman has to have a master's to earn what a man with a bachelor's degree will earn. So why does this matter here? Well, it matters because when women take on additional debt to get to those graduate degrees, we know that even though they take on that additional debt, they owe a lot more for that additional debt. They're still on average going to earn less once they get that degree. So women on this chart is showing that women with graduate degrees earn a median of 85,000 per year, and that's about 71 cents on the dollar relative to men. So that is still a problem. I mean, it's sometimes related to what you take, what you have an interest in. Women are often much more interested in intellectual and caring professions, but much more likely to be teachers, nurses, social workers. Those types of professions require master's degrees and graduate degrees, but they, in general, tend to pay less. So this is something that we need to talk about. We need to highlight. Moving on to the next slide, Artem. So given all of that information, now we have the one big beautiful bill and some of the changes that we expect. So Grad Plus loans have been discontinued. We have direct unsubsidized loans capped at 100K, professional programs 200K, the limit of 50K. So if you read all of these bullet points, they're really just putting a lot of caps and limiting access to loans for several people. Well, there are pros and cons to this, right? I mean, one of the pros is that people don't necessarily take out all these huge loans that they did in the past, because Artem and I both spent a lot of time telling you how expensive it is and how many loans people take out. But now with all these additional caps, then one of the questions we ask is who's most affected and who no longer has access to graduate degrees because of the caps. And that's a significant concern for me. We've eliminated the ability to borrow up to the full cost of attendance, and graduate students will now rely almost directly on direct unsubsidized loans with very strict caps. So this is going to have implications for who now has access to graduate degrees. Turning back over to Artem.
So in addition to new loan limits, which we'll talk a bit about more in a little while, there also have been changes to the student loan repayment policies. So new borrowers are going to now have access to two plans. The standard plan, which will divide payments, fixed payments over 10 to 25 years, depending on the amount that somebody borrows, and all the income-based repayment or income-dependent repayments are going to be consolidated into a single repayment assistance plan, which is going to have payments between 1 and 10% of adjusted gross income, depending on the income, with a $50 reduction for each dependent. But the new main thing is that everyone is going to have a $10 minimum, because in prior income-based plans, really low-income borrowers who are on the bottom end were not required to make payments. On the other side, the unpaid interest, which has previously accumulated, will now be waived if somebody is making on-time payments. The forgiveness period has also shifted to 30 years as opposed to the previous 20 to 25 years on the previous plans. And again, this has a large impact, particularly on graduate degree borrowers, less so on undergraduates because of the loan amounts. Economic hardship and unemployment deferments have also been eliminated, and forbearances have been limited to 9 months for every 24 months period. In addition, under OBBA and related regulations, they're now going to institute, the federal government is going to institute a new test that all programs must meet. This is based on earnings, what the term is do no harm test, and this is required for all programs to maintain student loan eligibility. This will have separate thresholds for undergraduates and graduate and professional programs, and especially relevant for graduate and professional programs. These are going to be higher thresholds than under previous gainful employment rules, for example. So in this case, 4 years after graduation, completers will have to earn at least as much as a comparable bachelor's degree worker. Basically someone ages 25 to 34, and it's either someone with a bachelor's degree in the same field, or with a bachelor's degree overall in the state, or in some cases nationally, especially if the enrollment makeup, if fewer than half of program enrollment is coming from the state, then it would be nationally. And this applies to graduates who are not enrolled in further education, have been employed for 2 of the last 3 years, and if a program fails this test for 2 out of 3 years, it loses access to federal student loans. Some updates on negotiated rulemaking. So over the winter, we've had a number of negotiated rulemaking sessions that have clarified certain things. So in terms of loan limits, the big question is the difference between graduate and professional programs. And there are a couple of things here to note. One is that prior to this law, there were higher limits for certain medical and healthcare programs. And while most of these programs are now going to be classified as professional, so they'll have access to higher loan limits than graduate programs, it's still lower than used to be the case prior. And the Ed Department basically said that they do not think they have the authority, or at least they're not planning to change these limits specifically for those healthcare programs that have previously gotten higher limit exception. So the programs that were selected have generally been the ones mentioned in the bill, with one addition of clinical psychology, and essentially under the proposed regulations, any programs that are in the same 4-digit zip code would qualify for those higher professional loan limits. All other programs will be considered graduate and will not qualify for the higher loan limits. The standard repayment plan payments were set at a minimum of $50. For the accountability, the department decided to combine gainful employment and financial value transparency together with these new regulations under OBBA. And essentially, it's the same earnings accountability tests applied across all programs. So graduate, undergraduate, certificates, and the debt to earnings metric that was under gainful employment regulation that has been dropped. And while the department is maintaining the financial value transparency system that they now renamed the Student Tuition Transparency System, they are dropping elements that were relating to debt and debt to earnings and private borrowing reporting as institutions. Okay, I think we're ready for breakout sessions. So I believe there are going to be 5 groups. And so there are questions here for each